your hosts, Dalton and Ryan.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Steam Machine Podcast. My name is Dalton, and this week it's a little different. Our buddy Ryan is currently curled up in bed. He thinks he has the plague, but we will find out soon enough. So please send your well wishes, prayers, good vibes, whatever you might like to throw people's way towards our buddy Ryan, to hope he feels better and hope that he comes back negative on his tests and such, because we want him to be healthy, and especially with the baby and the little one, two of them. So, but this week, in order to join me, I recruited another good buddy. We call him Game Bud Prime in other circles. Is our buddy Nate, who actually bought us Hollow Knight to play this week, and so I figured, why the fuck not have him on and talk about it? If he likes the game enough to buy it for two dumb fucks like me and Ryan and have us play it and listen to us talk about it, then fuck it, I'm going to have him come on and talk about it with us. But unfortunately, Ryan can't be here, but Nate can. Everybody say hello to Nate. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on tonight. I'm just, real excited to get your opinions on how you felt playing through Hollow Knight. I'm bummed out that Ryan couldn't be here because I was really excited to hear what he had to say, but hopefully next week you can have him on and just run through it a little bit at the beginning so I can get his opinion just a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I will. I'll prod him because we've been having conversations behind the scenes about it, and it's all been positive, but I'll leave it to him to talk about it when he's feeling better and comes back. Man, so first off, a little bit about how we met. We met through Tadpog and the Tadpog Discord and Facebook and such, and you started up Game Bud Night, which is why they call you Game Bud Prime. And
that is correct.
Yeah, and that has become one of the funnest fucking things that I look forward to every week, especially now. Like, Among Us was fun, and I was having a lot of fun with that. It got a little old, but it was still fun to be able to get together and talk with people and like have a good time. But this new fucking golf game, that Grim had suggested, what is it called? Golf with Your Friends, I think?
Yeah, that's right.
Dude, I've been having a fucking blast. So, like...
It's great, dude. I'm just so, happy that I decided to do that. Like, I just really wanted to play Among Us, and I was like, I have the perfect group of people I knew who to play this with. And I was like, if we could just get enough people in there playing, I know we'll have an awesome time. And so I'm just happy that it just continued to evolve from there, where everybody's just been coming in, having fun. We've been doing that, Jackbox games. It's just been pretty awesome all around. It just, everybody in there cracks me up so hard every single week. I look forward to it a lot, man.
Oh, yeah, dude. It is full of laughs. I really do look forward to it. And, Among Us... I just want to talk about that game for a minute. Like, when that game kind of came out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden everybody was playing it. And then when you guys, when you had brought it up, I was really happy that it stuck, because we had tried things before, or I had tried to do things before with hey, I'm playing World of Warcraft, like, who wants to play with me? And I think Grim started and stuff, and I think Grim's still playing, whereas I dropped off. But then I know we tried Ultima Online for a while, and people were playing that, and that kind of fell off. And I wasn't around for, Smash Bros. And Mario Kart and all of that, but I heard that, those were popular for a little bit.
I think what really helped out here was playing those more smaller, bite-sized games that feel like less of a commitment. So it just feels like it's more accessible for more people to come in and play. And I'm just happy that people continue to want to play after, like you said, the Among Us hype starts to die down a little bit. Then so far, every time something like that's happened, we've had another game to take its place. I think it's just becoming a staple for so many people's Thursday nights over there now. And it's just, I think a lot of people look forward to it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude, absolutely. I haven't gotten in on the Jackbox Party games. I've been meaning to, but usually by the time everybody's like, all right, let's play some Jackbox, it's like, I'm gonna go lay down. Because it's usually pretty...
Yeah, the funny thing about some of games like that is just people are just bored and say, hey, can we get enough people? And with Jackbox, you can have just 5 people and it's fine. So it's not like the time where we're just all trying to get everybody in there at once. So it just kind of changes based on what game we're playing.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that based off of the old You Don't Know Jack series? Did that spawn off of that, or is it something completely different?
Yeah, you don't know Jack is what the first one that came out was, and then they just continued to build the whole Jackbox enterprise from there.
Okay. Okay. I was always curious about that because I was like, the names in the whole trivia style game,
Hmm.
it can't be a coincidence. There's got to be a link there somehow. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember renting like the first You Don't Know Jack. I think it was on like PlayStation or something way back in the day, and it was fun. But I was kind of just like, what the fuck is this? Like, because back then, I was looking for the next Final Fantasy or the next Crash Bandicoot, and You Don't Know Jack was not it.
No, for sure.
But let so shout out, like I said, to Game Buds Night and all the Game Buds. Like, fucking great time. It's been a blast. That brings us to this week's game, and I know you hold this game in high regard, and I have to say it has impressed me for the time that I have put into it. And as I'm sitting here looking through this list of bosses, I realize that I've put in almost 10 hours and I haven't even scratched the surface of this game. And wow, so Hollow Knight. Let me get out the obligatory Wikipedia bullshit in the beginning. And it is Hollow Knight is a 2017 action-adventure game developed and published by Team Cherry. It was released for Microsoft Windows, Mac operating systems, and Linux in 2017, and then for the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One in 2018. Development was partially funded through a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign, raising over $57,000 at the end of 2014. The game follows a nameless knight, commonly referred to as Ghost or the Knight, by fans as they traverse an ancient plague-infested kingdom inhabited by various insects known as Hollow Nest. The knight must travel through Hollow Nest, fighting bosses, unlocking new abilities as they progress to uncover the mystery of the kingdom. Hollow Knight was well received by critics and has sold well over 3 million copies as of December 2020. A sequel is in development called Hollow Knight Silk Song. Now, I kind of knew about Silksong before going into this because I've heard so much hype about Hollow Knight over the years. So when I saw, oh man, what is her name?
Hornet. Hornet.
Hornet, thank you. Yeah, when I saw her, I was like, hey, that's the character from the Silksong stuff I've seen. So she must play a big role in this. Uh, so first and foremost, what was your first experience with this game? When did you first play it, and how did it affect you? Did it make you break a controller?
Well, I wish I could remember exactly when I first got this game. It was like I'd gotten a Switch for my birthday one year. I can't remember if it was 28. It had to be 2018 or 2017. I can't remember when the Switch came out and all that stuff, but I didn't get it right away. And when I first got the Switch, I was just playing like the games you would expect somebody who just got a Switch to play. I got Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, all those kinds of games that
The standards, yeah.
the standards, and then like Smash Ultimate. And then I just started watching like a lot of video game YouTubes and stuff and looking up what the best games for the Switch are. And I just kept coming across Hollow Knight over and over again. And I've always been a big fan of Metroidvania games, which Hollow Knight checks off a big thing there. The one thing that held me back from it initially was the art style, which is crazy to say now because that's one of my absolute favorite things about the game. When I first saw it, I thought it kind of looked kind of like Newsgroundsy. You remember Newgrounds, like
Oh my
that old
goodness.
website?
Oh yeah, dude.
So,
Yeah. Flash games? Yes, sir.
yeah, so it kind of gave me those vibes, and I was never really into that. But I was so wrong about that, just because looking at it now, it's like one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. Just the animation style and the music. But back to the question, it's like I just saw this on there, and it kept coming back and coming back. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this game a shot. It's $15 on the Switch eShop, which is where I played it on, because I'm a Switch gamer.
Hell yeah.
And so picked it up and just absolutely fell in love with it then. It just had hit all the right chords for me. It's like a wonderful platformer, great progression, Metroidvania, super challenging, which I know is a lot of people's complaints with it, but it's just so satisfactory when you complete one of those challenges that just been driving you insane for the last 30 minutes or however long. Like, I'm sure like some of those boss fights you got to, you're just like, oh my God, I'm going to kill somebody. And then when you finally beat it, that sense of, yeah, I did it.
Yeah, there were a few of those. I think I only ran into like one boss that I was like, oh, that was relatively easy, and the rest of them were like, oh my God. Now, here's one of my complaints about this game, and I have very few, and this may even be the only one. Could they have not put a fucking bench outside of where bosses were? or at least a frame away, because having them where I have to traverse another like half a level to get back to where I was at, and then I have to survive to get there. Oh man, it was killing me.
Yeah, I will agree with that. That sometimes can be frustrating, and there are points in the game where they are more generous with the bench placement for things like that. But yeah, a lot of times, especially depending on where you are in the game, it can be a real pain in the butt trying to go back and get your shade back after you die, so you don't lose all of your geo that you've collected.
Oh yeah, I had about 9,000 go right down the drain.
Oh man, no.
Yeah, it was brutal, and that was the point where I was like, all right, that was at that like that night. I was done that night. I'm like, all right, I'll play more tomorrow, because I was saving up. I had like all of this because I was just running around trying to figure out where to go, and I had finally found the boss. And I was like, man, and once I beat this boss, I'm gonna go back up to town and buy some new like markers and stuff. And nope, no. The game had other things planned for me. But
yeah, that's tough, man.
you commented on the art style, and I'll say that I loved its like grim, dark look when I first started it, and then when I got into and started running around, I was like, man, if the whole game is gonna look like this, it's really pretty, but it's very dreary and kind of sorrowful, right? And that hasn't changed, but when I found the Greenway, I was like, oh, this place is gorgeous. And it actually, like, somehow it is animated to, you can like feel the humidity in that place. Like when I'm in there, I'm like, oh, I know what this place feels. Living in Florida, I especially know what this area is like, feels like. And I'm like, man, they did really good with the atmosphere, the music, the way it builds the whole vibe. It's tremendous.
I absolutely agree with you. And I will say this, it does stay pretty grim and dreary through the entirety of the game, but you do get those variances in each of those little different zones you get into that just adds a different element of life to it that's just really intriguing as you play through it.
I can't remember the name of the area. You probably would remember better than me, but everything had this like purplish hue to it, and there were like bubbles floating everywhere. It looked really cool.
Oh, I think that might be Fog Canyon you're talking about.
Yep, that is what it is. Yep, Fog Canyon. Yeah, that place is really pretty too. Obviously, like I said, I haven't even scratched the surface on this game. Apparently, I thought I was doing well until I started looking at this list. But I've seen like 4 or 5 different areas, and one of the areas I don't know anything about because I don't have a map for it, and I can't find the map guy. But I did end up like running into, and this might get into some of the story, so we can start touching on that because I know you have notes. I did run into like these 3 statues that like yelled at me basically, and the screen shook, and they threw me into another dimension. And I was like, well, and that area was gorgeous. I really liked that area.
Yeah, that was really neat. You will come back to that from time to time throughout the game, just depending on where you are. And my brain's escaping me a little bit. I want to say that those 3 were called like the Watchers or something like that, or that might have been one of their names, but they end up being something, they're very key throughout the course of the game, especially towards the ending of the game. You actually have to do some stuff with them to get there.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. Now, okay, so the game starts off and you're kind of just roaming around, and you meet the old man. Does the old man ever have anything more than he just kind of stands there and tells you different stuff, or is he kind of a key component hidden?
He's kind of just there as the, hey, welcome to Hollow Knight kind of guy. He doesn't really evolve any as a character or anything like that. And for the most part, I would say that there aren't a whole lot of dynamics within the NPCs of the game. They're kind of just there for their specified role. There are a couple of cool ones in the game that will come back later in the game. So, like, if you trigger certain events, there's at least 2 of them I can think of that will come back and help you later in the game. It's pretty neat. But for the most part, the NPCs are just that, NPCs. They don't really have a lot going on.
Okay. When I first met him, my first thought was, I hope this dude's the protagonist of this game. Or I'm sorry, the antagonist. Yeah, the antagonist.
Yeah.
But diving in and getting down there, man. Okay, so I've never played a Dark Souls game, right? Mm-hmm. The closest thing that I've come to one of those games was Lords of the Fallen. And as far as difficulty goes, I've heard this game called Souls-like, and I get it. I get it now. This game does not hold your hand at all.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about saying that is like it doesn't hold your hand at all, but the way that it goes about teaching you how to do things in the course of the game, you don't even realize it's doing it a lot of the time. Like they put you in this first area, and all you have at that beginning part, you don't even have the dash when you start off, do you?
No, no, you just have jump and slash.
Yeah, and so like, and then after that, you get the dash, and you start seeing areas where like you just barely couldn't make that jump before, but you can dash across the spikes and get there. And just every little progression, you've noticed little things like that where it's like, oh, they just had this just out of reach before, but now you can get to that area.
And a good example of that to me is when I told you I found this shaky ground, and I'm like, I've jumped up and attacked the ground, nothing's happening here, and you're like, oh, you don't have you worry about that later. And then I beat the boss that gave me that, and it was the Soul Master, and which that fight took me forever. And then I thought it was over, and it wasn't over, and then I had to do it another couple times.
I remember that fake out so much, dude. My first playthrough, I was just like you the first time I played this game, where I would fight that guy and just over and over again, going to the bench, going to get my shade back, going to fight him again, just over and over. And I finally beat that first phase, and then it falls through the floor, and you fall down there with him. You think it's over. Dude has a couple more tricks up his sleeve for you.
Yeah. Oh man, it shattered me. But he once you beat him, he gives you I don't even know what to call it. It's like a power slam down. Like you jump up and hit down and B, and it just slams you into the ground. And immediately, I wanted to go back to where I found that shaky ground and could not remember where it was.
And see, it's cool too because, like I was saying before, the game kind of teaches you once you get the power up how to use it and where to use it. Because once you beat the boss and you get that new power up, if you don't start testing it out in that area, you're never going to get out of there because you have to slam through that glass to get out, if you remember correctly.
Yep.
So it makes sure that you understand what each power up is for once you get it.
It also it teaches you to look at the ground because there was a section where I ran around for like 10 minutes. I'm like, where the fuck am I supposed to go? There's no way out of here. And then I just stood on this one spot and I saw the ground shake. And I went, oh, son of a bitch. And then used the power and boom, I was out.
Yeah. And sometimes those kind of things are kind of hard to find because it's like just like a little spot that you could just easily miss walking over it.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. And
Because I remember I was doing it again this time, and I was like trying to figure out how to get into this certain area of the game. And when I play, I don't know about you, I jump and dash a lot. And apparently, I had just jumped and dashed over this spot where I needed to do that ground pound type move over and over again. Just because I kept going back and forth across an area, but I'm always jumping and dashing when I play.
yeah, the dash was the first one that when I got that, I'm like, oh, I knew this exact spot because I ran by it 100,000 times already. Where there was like a ledge out of jumping reach with a caterpillar in a jar. Which the caterpillars in the jar things help me out with this. So it seems like there's a lot of them, right? You have to fill up every hole in that room that the daddy caterpillar thing's in.
Yeah, so that's kind of more of a completionist type task to do. It's like not a required thing. It's just one of those kind of little hidden Easter egg things. So where you go and find all the grubs, and then once you go visit, the grub father is the guy's name in there that is, the protecting all the grubs. He'll start throwing Geo at you. If you do it long enough, it'll start throwing you like a mask shard at you, which the mask shard, if you collect 4 of those, you get an extra life point, so you can take another hit during the game.
Man.
So like just collecting all those different grubs, you get different rewards for each one.
Man, the mask shards, I think I've gotten 5 so far, and I feel like they are few and far between unless I'm just not looking in the right places. But then again, like I said, I feel like I've barely gotten anywhere in this game other than like 4 or 5 different areas.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like they are hard to find. There's not a whole lot of them. I think there is a total of, I want to say 20, because I think you can get 5 extra hits throughout the course of the game. But yeah, they are hard to find. But just to put it into perspective, like you said, you feel like you've just scratched the surface of the game. The first time I played the game, I got to 101% completion, which I believe the full completion is 112%, and that's because they added DLC while the game was being released and all of that. But the first time I got to 101% completion, and it took me 42 hours to get that far.
Whew. Yeah, I could see it.
Now, to put that in perspective now, this is my second playthrough, and it's been over a year since the last time I played it. I got to 103% completion in 30 hours. So just having that knowledge and memory of what everything is and what everything does is super helpful.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. I imagine like so. This is one of my first forays into like Metroidvania. Although I mean, I would kind of call Wonder Boy that we played like a Metroidvania light because it was like an early game back on the Master System that was remastered and stuff. But I do know on the list we also have Ori in the Blind Forest. I think it's called.
I want to play. I have not played that yet. I really want to. It looks so cool.
I've dabbled in it, right? And it's so pretty. It's a different graphic style than Hollow Knight, but equally satisfying as far as the artistic scale goes. Like, it's fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, like I've watched like a little bit of gameplay of it, and it looks fantastic. I just haven't picked it up yet. There's just like so many games out there now that I want to get to, and it's just like so hard to choose what I'm going to play next that I just keep playing the same old games over and over.
Brother, that's why I started this show. It's like, how many times can I play Oblivion and Skyrim before I just but and here I am, I still play Skyrim. Like my museum is up to like 1046 displays now.
No, whenever I'm sitting on my computer and it pops up on the lower right-hand corner of my monitor, Guitar Man Dalton is now playing Skyrim. I can't help but chuckle because it happens a lot.
Yeah, man. I have all of these other games that I could be playing, but I'm fucking. I want to see this museum full. Damn it! And then I will be. When I finish that mod, I am done with Skyrim for like 5 years.
You say that you'll be back. You're always back.
I mean, maybe to come back to mod all the dragons to look like Randy Savage, but
I'm down with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I remember correctly, the first boss that you come across in Hollow Knight is the False Knight, correct?
Yeah, I'd say that's the first real boss. I mean, before that, I think you fight what's the Grozmother, which was that big fly in the kind of the cage where it just kind of bounced up and down, and you just had to beat it, but it was just really simple.
That was the one that I had no issue with. Was the Grozmother? That's the one that was really easy. So yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't even consider that because I didn't even think that was that hard. But yeah, that's the first one. But the False Knight was the first one that I died and had to go back, and then died and had to go back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's understandable because, like, especially when you're first going through the game and you're just learning all the mechanics. I don't even remember. You have the dash at that point, right, or no?
Oh man, I think so.
Yeah, because I feel like it'd be a different fight without the dash, but I think you do too. And it's just like you're still trying to master that mechanic so you can avoid his attacks, and then he starts throwing out all these different attacks at you that you're not quite ready for, like the one where he bangs on the ground and projectiles start falling from the sky.
Surprisingly, I had no issue with that mechanic because I would run all the way to the right of the screen and none of the rocks would fall there for some reason.
Oh, really?
I don't know if it was just my version of the game was fucked up or what, but it just none of the, like, up against the wall, nothing fell there. My thing was when I would try to jump and hit him and he would just swing and catch me as I was jumping. And
yeah, timing on those kind of things you got to get used to.
Yeah.
For sure. But I can definitely see that being a hard foray. But I'm not sure how far into the game you are now. But I think you've gotten to the point because it seems like you've been to the resting grounds area because that's where you saw those 3 statues.
That is the last new area that I found was the resting ground.
So you've talked to that weird kind of like shaman-y lady up in the upper left-hand corner of that area that kind of talks to you and gives you the dream nail?
Yeah,
Have you gotten that?
Yeah, and I upgraded the dream nail. I ended up fighting some fucking warrior spirit thing that kicked my ass like 25 times before I killed him, and it gave me 100 of whatever the fuck that shit was, and I went back
the essence, yeah,
and went back and upgraded the nail, and then I realized that I probably wasn't even supposed to do that warrior fight yet, and it was really fucking hard.
Yeah, so like those, like you said, the warrior fights, like I feel like definitely a lot of them, it's best to come back later once you've upgraded more and explored more of like the physical realm. But what I was going to get at with that is, so there's certain bosses in the game, and one of them being the False Knight that you fight in the beginning. Actually, hold on. I'm thinking. Yeah. Anyway, the False Knight you fight in the beginning. But there's certain bosses that you can go back and find their corpse. And if you hit that with the Dream Nail, you fight an upgraded version of that boss fight again.
Oh God. Oh, okay. So that's what the is he the white defender then?
No, that's different.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't remember what this upgraded one's called off the top of my head, but I don't remember. But it becomes an even much harder boss fight. Even when you're at a fully upgraded knight, it just feels hard on that one. The other guy, the Soul Master that you were talking about earlier, that you learned the ground pound from, that has an upgraded version of that fight that makes it that much harder. So if you had enough trouble with it the first time, the second time might
Oh yeah.
really destroy you.
I can't imagine. Oh yeah, this thing has the list of boss variants. So so it'd be Soul Tyrant is his second
Yeah.
form. Man, I had a hard enough time with the first one. Is there a point to beating the second form, or is it just more completion at that point?
So there is a story element that you get to. So like you remember we were talking about collecting the essence,
Hmm.
where you need to get to about I think it's 1,500 essence total to be able to achieve the true ending of the game. And there's options for you. You don't have to do every single one of these variant fights or anything, but you do need to be able to come up with the 1,500 essence some way or the other. So like you said, the warrior fights are a good way to get those. And then so are these variant versions of the boss fights. So like I think like some of those are worth like 200 essence. And then I know you found like one of the little trees that you hit that with the dream nail, and then all those little red orbs popped up.
Yeah, that I had to run
There's
around and
a,
go collect them.
yeah, there's a few of those that are scattered throughout the world too that you can go and collect the essence that way as well.
Yeah, I had seen one or two of them running around, and I was like, "What are these? I can't interact with them." But now I know.
No, it's like everything just keeps coming back, man. You just get something new, and you're like, oh, that clicks now. This makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and I will say that that's one thing that this game is good at is like it may not hold your hand, but like you said, it's good at teaching you along the way. Like so, if I had I not been paying attention, I would have not seen those things. You know what I mean? But because I've been running through these areas so many times, it's really easy to kind of just pick and point. You take notice of things that you see, 50 times, 100 times as you run by it.
Yeah.
Or if you get lost like me, 200, 300 times. Like, now there were a couple enemies in this game that weren't bosses that I came across that I thought were bosses, like the tall skinny fuckers with a shield.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Like the mothy looking guys.
Yeah, I remember posting in Discord, "Fuck this shield boss guy." And then like 5 minutes later, I came upon another one, and I said, "Oh, it's just an enemy."
Yeah, I was trying to, like, I was sitting there when you posted that. I was like, what shield boss is he talking about? I can only think of one boss that really uses a shield, and there's no way he's over there yet.
No, he just I died on that. Like, and then there's the enemies that are just like the big fat guys. They kind of look like a false knight, but like a mini version.
Yeah.
And they were difficult at first for me too. Now I kind of figured out I just kind of like hit them a couple times and then run or dash out. Now that I have dash, it's a lot easier to hit and run, hit and run, hit and run.
Yeah, for sure. That the dash helps a lot. Eventually in the game, you'll get a double jump called the Monarch Wings, so you can stay in the air to avoid attacks a little bit easier too, along with the dash. And then there's also becomes like a wall climb, like a wall jump maneuver you get later in the game too. So all that stuff just kind of starts coming together, where your movement gets better and better, but so does the platforming challenges just get harder and harder because of it.
I was very happy when I got the Hadouken. I don't know
Oh yeah.
the Soul Blast or something I think it's called, or something
It's
like
something
that.
like that.
But
I
yeah.
don't remember the exact name either. Because also when you talk about something like that, there's variants to that as well. So like later in the game, you get an upgraded version of that.
Oh, that's
So I have trouble remembering which each name is. I think one's called Vengeful Spirit. I think the other might be Soul Blast. I think Soul Blast is the first version, then Vengeful Spirit. It's something like that. Yeah.
yeah, man. I know that that has saved my ass a few different times when it's like I have that, but it's a choice. And I like that it's a choice. It's like you can either use that or heal yourself,
Yeah.
and which
So
you can't heal yourself in this game with your little power bar, or I don't even know what I call it, a power bar. It's like your little soul container.
Yeah, I think it's called the Soul Vessels. So yeah, it'd probably be good to talk about some of the mechanics of the game like that too, because
Yeah, for sure.
there's a lot of stuff like that. So like you have your health bar, and then you have your soul meter. And your soul meter is used for either like focusing, which is what it's called when you heal yourself, which to focus, you hold on my controller, it's the A button down, and it takes about a second, and you gain one of your life points back, but you can't do anything else while you're doing that.
Yeah.
So it's taking a risk. If you're in the middle of battle, you think you have time to do it, you better hurry up and do it, but you could get hit again while doing it. Otherwise, it's just good to wait until you're in a safe area and hold it down and get your health back that way. But that comes at a limit too, because it also is used for your magic spells, like we were talking about. Like I believe the ground pound costs it,
Yep.
the soul blast counts it, and there's another spell that you haven't gotten to yet that uses it. So like you have to constant resource management there as well, because you have to decide, okay, I know that this soul blast is really going to hurt this enemy, but I won't be able to heal if I use it. So you got to kind of be careful with what you do there. But you also get soul back from hitting an enemy physically.
Yeah.
So just that balance you got to work through.
And then that comes into play with another thing that I thought was a boss, but ends up just being an enemy. That's like the armadillo-looking guys. They're like the armored sloth. I don't know what the hell they are, but they curl up, and the only way you can hurt them is when if you stand back, because if you get too close to them, they curl up. But if you back up, they get back up. You got to shoot them with your juice, your man juice, blah blah blah. The soul blast is what I'm gonna start calling it. Oh, I'm gonna soul blast. But you can only fire off at the point I'm at. I don't know if it ever extends or anything, but at the point I'm at, I can only fire off 3 before I'm out. And those guys, luckily, spit. They're spitting lava balls at you, but they also spit like roly-polies. And you can use those roly-polies to attack with your nail to then build your meter back up to throw another Hadouken the way of the big guy and finally destroy it. Because when I first found that thing, I'm like, well, how the fuck do you get by this? And that goes back to you eventually learn, and then boom, you're like, oh yeah, I need to go back to that area so I can kill that dude now. It's really, really impressive how they weaved all of this together so masterfully.
Yeah, and I believe that guy is also the guardian that's holding you back from getting into the green path area, which you were talking about.
Yep.
So like once you get to there, you just start because you're first starting going around just in the Forgotten Crossroads area, and then when you finally open that up, you start to realize the scope of the game. You're like, oh, that was only the first area of the game. Now we're in another area. How many areas are there going to be?
Yeah, and that's where I'm currently sitting at.
And one thing I really wanted to say about this game in general was this game is $15. $15. I've gotten more fun and playtime out of this $15 game than I have out of a lot of AAA titles.
Yeah, that's an incredible price for this. And it makes me want to check out Hades because everybody's ranting about that, and it's like that game's cheap too. And it makes me wonder, like some of these games that I've passed on because it's like, oh well, they don't cost that much. They're probably super indie, not very good.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me want to kind of recant that and start going and checking out some of these again because with this now, I always wanted to play Hollow Knight, but I was just like, maybe it's not for me. But now that I'm playing it, I'm like, I really enjoy this. I would like to see the end of this eventually, even if it takes me a year grinding away. And I can't recommend it to anybody enough for $15. Like that's ridiculously cheap for.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I was just looking through your list of games, and I was like, son of a gun, Hollow Knight's not on their list. I gotta fix that if I can.
Which we very much appreciate because I might not have played this if not. So like that's fucking very rad of you, sir.
Yeah.
Now.
Oh,
go ahead.
I was gonna say another one of the because we were talking about mechanic stuff before we kind of went down that road. Another thing I think is really cool about the game, and my brother Icebrand was telling me that this is kind of like how they do it in Dark Souls, which I think is another reason why they have that Souls kind of comparison sometimes. But when you die, it leaves your shade, which is kind of like your ghost. And in order to get all your stuff back, which is I think it's really Geo at that point, which is the currency in the game.
Yep.
You just go back and you have to kill your shade and get it back. And the shade's really easy to kill, but...
Well, you also have to get your shade to restore your soul thing because it breaks.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So, yeah.
That's true. So it's just like, that's another interesting mechanic. It's like, you'll die, but you don't necessarily have to lose everything if you go back and get your shade.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really cool mechanic first time I played through.
When I first lost the shade, I was like, oh, man. What is this going to affect? But when I realized that at the point it was just I lost like one heal and my money, I was like, all right, that's doable. as long as I'm not losing abilities and stuff when I die and then have to go back and get them. And,
Oh yeah, that'd be rough.
be real rough because I wasn't 100% sure if this was like a Metroidvania roguelike or not, but it's definitely not a roguelike.
Yeah, for a Metroidvania roguelite, I can't suggest Dead Cells enough. That game is also incredible.
I have heard a lot of things about Dead Cells. That's another one I haven't dove
It's
into,
also
but I've heard of.
it's also brutally difficult.
Hey, you like these brutally difficult games, huh?
I do when they're the platformers, because like that's something like I mean I grew up with it, like obviously I play a lot of old school Nintendo games still to this day, and a lot of those games were platformers, so I grew up on platformers, and I just love the genre still to this day.
Yeah. And do you like 3D platformers as well?
I do enjoy those because like I was one of those kids that went from Nintendo to Sega Genesis, then Nintendo 64, so like I played all like Mario 64 was mind blowing when it came out, and then they had like Banjo Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64. So yeah, you play what you grow up with and you enjoy it, and I think that carries over to adulthood as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well in that case, then might I say again, you should check out Snake Pass. Don't listen to Ryan. You like games that are frustratingly difficult platformers. I didn't find that game frustratingly difficult. Ryan, on the other hand, found it extremely frustrating. So, I think you'd have fun. But back to Hollow Knight. I'm very bad about getting sidetracked. Another mechanic are the charms. You want to talk about those a little bit?
Oh yeah, the charms are awesome. So in this game, you'll find these little things called charms every once in a while, and they will enhance an ability or do something to make your character a little bit stronger in some way or the other. So, for instance, there's one called Long Nail, which will increase the length of your nail, which is what the sword you carry is called, is your nail. Will increase your length of your sword nail by 50% or something like that. So you actually have a longer reach, because sometimes it's hard when you're trying to get up close to an enemy. They'll just smack you. So if you have that longer nail, it makes it easier to hit them. There's another one called Quick Focus, which will make your time to focus your energy to gain that health back a lot shorter. But with those charms, you have a certain amount of charm notches. So some charms are worth 2 notches, some are worth 3. So you kind of have to balance which charms you want to use with how many notches you have available. So it's a really cool mechanic where it's also where like you got to decide what's more important to you right now. Do you want to be able to focus up and get your health back quicker, or do you want to have that longer nail? Because you might not be able to have both at the same time based on how many notches you have.
Yeah, that's the point I'm at right now, is that I think I just unlocked another notch, so I'm at 4. And deciding which of the charms that I want. I don't have long nail. If I had that, it would definitely be on there. But deciding like, do I want this that makes enemies drop more soul or give me back more soul, or do I want these butterflies that pick up Geo that drops and I can't get to?
I love that one, man, because like before you start using that, you do not realize how much Geo you leave behind, because when you kill an enemy, the Geo just kind of bounces everywhere.
Scatters.
Sometimes it'll bounce into a hole, sometimes it'll bounce up to a corner you can't quite reach. But if you have this charm on, these little like flies just come and grab them and bring it all to you, no matter where it is on the screen. So like you just don't realize how much money you're missing until you use a charm like that.
Yeah, once I equipped that, it started racking up. And I was like, "Oh, this is wonderful." So I haven't used the one since that gives me the more soul.
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, that's cool and all, and it's probably really helpful in other parts of the game. But right now, I need to be rich. So let's.
Yeah, and then there's another charm that I never take off when I play the game, because sure there's people that are better at navigating the map than me, but I will never take off the Wayward Compass.
Oh, nope, that stays.
Because that shows your
equipped.
position on the map.
Yeah, that stays equipped, sir. That was the first thing I bought. Yeah, it was like one of the first things available, and it said, show where you are on the map. I'm like, yes, please, because I am terrible with direction.
Yeah, and I know the game pretty well, and I still don't like going without it. It's like I can pretty much tell what room I'm in, but maybe I can't. So it's probably best that I just keep it on.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I was looking for a specific room, and I would leave a room and go navigate for 10 minutes and end up back in the room I started in. Like, son of a bitch. And at one point, I went and hit a guide because I needed to. I was like, I don't know where to go next. And they were like, go here. And I was like, all right, that's all I need to know. And then I went there, and I figured out the rest of it from there. But I was just like, dude, what the fuck? I had gone in circles for like an hour and a half, and I didn't want to bug you. It was like 6 a.m. here, so I wasn't gonna message you. So I'm like, fuck, I'll just look it up and get a general idea. And I think that was around the time that I had found the soul master.
Yeah, and I remember like that's such a fun boss fight, but it's difficult when you first do it. And like the funny thing is like me playing through this game the second time is like some of the stuff that I remember just being so frustratingly impossibly difficult. I first tried this time, and I think it just goes back to knowledge once you understand what you're doing. But like, gosh, there's some of this stuff that's still even the second time playing was still pretty brutal.
Now,
Like a lot of the, yeah, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead and finish your thought.
So just like, some of those platforming sections are still super hard later in the game.
Oh, I can imagine. There were some platforming sections that I died on strictly just because I wasn't paying attention enough. Like I would dash, but then like keep running and then just run into spikes and not realize that I was low, or I don't realize that I've only got 1 health and I need to heal. Now, how does I know we brought her up earlier. How does Hornet play into the whole aspect of it? Is she like a main part of, obviously she's got something to do with it because she's the protagonist of the sequel, so
Yeah, so she's definitely an important part of the game. Like, so once you get to first time you meet her, you'll just see her like standing on this ledge in the green patch, just looking down at you. And then when you try to jump up to her, it's too high for you to get to. But she just kind of darts off from there. So eventually you kind of like go through harder paths trying to catch up with her, basically, is what that whole section is what you're doing. And then you get to her and you fight her and you beat her, and you'll notice that she's one of the enemies that, like, she doesn't just explode, she just like kind of jumps off. She said, I don't remember exactly what she says to you there. Thing about you being a little ghost and all that. But yeah, she becomes a main part of the game because she's the only person that really kind of sees what you're attempting to do. Like you're trying to stave off the infection, and she can see the darkness in you, which is kind of a big theme that, you know, Hollow Knight, he's trying to save the world, but you can see the little darkness in him and all that kind of stuff. And so without trying to give away too many spoilers, there's towards the very end of the game too, you'll fight her one more time and there'll be an upgraded version of her that's harder, but you're also way upgraded by the time you get to her again. And you'll fight her again in what's called Kingdom's Edge, which is one of the last areas of the game. And at that point, more story stuff happens, but without going too much into details, because I don't want to give away a lot of spoilers, she kind of sees what your character becomes, and at the very end of the game, she will be there at the end, at the final boss, if you've done everything correctly, to lead you to a different path. So when you get to the final boss, which I don't think saying this part's too big of a spoiler, would be the Hollow Knight, because obviously you're the knight and you're expecting you're going to fight the Hollow Knight.
yeah.
If you do everything right, Hornet will show up there. If you don't, she won't. And it really changes the dynamic at the end of the game, because you think Hollow Knight's the final boss, and if you don't have Hornet there and you kill the Hollow Knight, that is the end of the game. And that's what I consider the bad ending, is when you beat it that way. But if you do everything correctly, I say it's correctly, but there's no wrong way to play a video game, whatever, right?
Yeah.
She will be there, and something will happen to where you don't necessarily kill the Hollow Knight, but it comes back to the Dream Nail situation from before, and you get transported into another realm, which, gosh, it's hard not to say spoiler, but if you remember that dream realm you were in earlier in the game, the ending, what I call the true ending, takes place there.
Okay. Huh.
And I know that was like rambly and a lot, so hopefully that translates okay, but...
No, I get you, but you're being vague, but for non-spoiler reasons, and I get it.
Yeah.
I'm interested now to wonder like how it would end, and like
And you'll get more of that, because I think I just remember they're called the Sleepers, or those 3 statue people that you saw before. As you move along the game and you see what happens with each of them, it starts to make more and more sense, because those are big story points, and I don't think you've hit one of them yet, or any of them yet, I mean. But once you start to get to those where you're doing what you need to do with the Sleepers, it becomes more and more obvious what path this whole thing's going down.
Okay. Well, I look forward to that, because right now I've been kind of trying to piece together things just by running around, and I haven't been able to piece together much other than, you know,
that's what you got to do, though, man. That's the best way to do it, is running around and exploring. It's like that's what the staple of Metroidvanias are in general. It's just exploration.
Yeah. Now
and upgrading. Yeah.
Some of the NPCs that stuck out to me. I like Sly, little dude that runs the little item station.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's cool. He's a cool little dude. I like Cornifer, the map guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And his wife Iselda doesn't seem to like him very much, but she's all right. She's kind of snippy. like
Yeah,
like like she doesn't want to be there.
I enjoy her a lot.
But my favorite character that I've come across by far, as far as animation and the way it looks, and just is the Last Stag, the fast travel mechanic, basically.
Yes.
That thing looks so cool when it's running up to you through the tunnel, because
Yeah.
the animation is
And
just so smooth.
it's so smooth and it's so cool, and I have so much I want to say about The Last Stag. I might get a little bit spoilery here with you, though, but
That's
I
fine.
want to kind of detail how much this game, even though there's not a lot of dialogue, there's not a lot of that, it just makes you care about the characters so much. So every time you open up a new stag station, which is where the stag will take you to,
Hmm.
he starts, and you can talk to him there because he's an NPC that'll talk to you and give you the rides. If you talk to him, he says something different about each one. And you get about to the halfway point, he's like, I think I'm starting to remember where the stag home is, the very place where all the stags were born, and the place where we go back every night when we were done with our shifts and all that kind of stuff. But, because he's the last stag.
Yeah.
And he's like, so by the time you finally find the last stag station and you talk to him again, he tells you, I found it. I finally found the stag home. And he's like, if you're not too busy, I can take you there sometime. And so you end up going there because, his whole story is kind of sad. He's the last stag, the last of his kind. So when you finally takes you there, you can go explore that last stag station. And while you're there, you find like what looks like open stag eggs. And you go and talk to him again, and he just gets really happy. And then from now on that point on, whenever you talk to him, it no longer calls him the last stag. It calls him the old stag.
Oh,
I know, and like it is so weird to me because like I get a little bit like emotional just saying that. It's like such little things like that that just left such an impact on me. When I got to like the final boss of the game this time, I was just like, and it's just because this game is so awesome to me and it means a lot to me. And I was just like, man, I had to pause it for a second. I was like, oh my god, I love this game.
man, it's always a good what's the word? A good telling of a game, like when you can be playing something and it's just something little like that can like bring emotion out of you, that like it'll make you like things that'll make you tear up because you're just like, oh, that's so good. It's like that is really good writing, and even when
Hmm.
the writing is sparse, when it is able to convey that type of emotion, like that is just like top tier to me.
Yeah, and like for me too, because that's just incredible because like it's such a dark, like a desolate feeling to the whole world down there. And then it gives you like one little nugget of hope and happiness, and it just makes you have all the feels.
It really, like, I can get that. I can see that because I already love that fucker. Like, and so I would like to get to that and be able to see that for myself.
Yeah,
I would
I figured
probably
that would
shed a
motivate
tear.
you a little bit too, because like there's just something about that character that just draws you to him, even though there's like it doesn't seem like there's really much there, but it turns out there's a ton there.
Yeah, and like he's just the fast travel thing. Like, just that they thought to add like a little backstory and stuff to the fast travel mechanic is tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we have reached about everything that I have gathered from this game. What other notes do you have, if any, my brother?
Yeah, so like the important things I wanted to talk about, I feel like we've really gotten to. We talked about the starting area, the mechanics of the game, a little bit about Hornet. I'm gonna spare the details of going through all of the areas in the game, but there's one that's at the very end of the game that I really want to talk about a lot,
Yeah, please, by all means.
and it's really the last area you're going to come across in the game if you're getting the good ending, and it's called the White Palace. So this is the area where you learn more about the kingdom and the king and everything that Hollow Knight is based on. But when you get there, it is the most brutal of all the platforming challenges in the game. So I remember the first time I played this game, I probably spent a good 2 hours in this area trying to get to the top of the White Palace to finally get to the end of that section. So, and it's a completely different area than you've ever seen before. It's very bright and white colored, where everything else is dark and gray in this White Palace. And there's spikes and buzzsaws everywhere. And you have to really use everything you've learned through the course of the game. All your dashes, your double jumps.
The wall,
You have
wall
to
slide.
use wall slide, pogoing off things with your nail, all that stuff to get through it.
Oh man,
And when
the
you finally do, you get a cutscene that's super worth it. But
pogoing, dude. real quick, the
Yeah.
pogoing. The first time I got to an area where I was like, how the fuck am I supposed to get over that? And there's just an enemy walking like underneath these platforms I'm on, and I'm like, surely they don't want me to do that. And I jumped and I tried and it worked, and I went, son of a bitch.
Yeah. So imagine an entire section full of stuff like that,
Oh my
but
God.
worse.
Wow.
But what I wanted to get at there is there's a part in there where if you break down a wall, you get to go to this completely optional part of the game that has its own little area name and everything, and it's called the Path of Pain. And so the Path of Pain is one of the most notorious sections that I know of in like modern indie games, where it's just like very, very, very difficult, insanely difficult to beat. And it is just the most brutal platforming I've ever seen in this game. And I didn't do it on my last playthrough. And I was like, I'm playing this game again. I'm going to do it this time. I swear I'm going to do it this time. And it's just relatively small section of platforming. I say relatively small, but it's like probably about 10 difficult screens of platforming. This section, Dalton, this section took me damn near 2 hours to do.
But you did it though.
I did do it. I completed it. And I
Yeah.
celebrated. I had a mighty celebration for myself. But it was so brutal. And like I've looked up stuff about it since then, and I've seen people say, you know, they spent 12 hours on it. People say they spent 15 hours on it. I'm like, good God. I believe it because I felt like I got kind of lucky when I finally got through all of it. But I was just like, this is so insane. And I loved it though, and I'm really proud of myself for beating it. But I was just like, I just had to touch on that because there are some optional challenges in this game that are just brutal. There's a section you haven't found yet called the Colosseum where there's like 3 trials to do. There's like the trial of the warrior, the trial of the champion, and the trial of the fool, I think they are. The trial of the fool, I haven't not completed yet. I want to try to do that. I'm not sure if I'll do it this time or not, but that's another one of those optional challenges that are just supposed to be insanely brutal. But the Path of Pain is the most notorious, and I was just like, I have to do this.
Yeah, dude. I bow down to you because if it's as hard as you're saying, I would probably just give the fuck up. I gave up Super Meat Boy because that game was too hard. So I would probably give up in that section. Be like, nah.
Yeah, that is definitely a game that I haven't tried yet. I actually own it for the PC, but I'm not much of a PC gamer, and my computer kind of sucks. But I think it would run Super Meat Boy just fine.
Oh yeah.
But
I think a potato.
I want to
would
try
run
it, but yeah, potato. Is it like Doom? You can just run that on a toaster.
I mean, I would assume because there's a lot going on in the levels, but it's all pixels, so I think it'd be all right.
But I think it's on brand for me because it's, you know, I know it's an extremely challenging platformer, so it's definitely one that I want to try. Just like I said, just other things just keep popping up that I keep playing. I bought Hades. I haven't tried it yet, but I bought it.
I acquired Hades,
Nice.
and I haven't tried it yet. I will buy it eventually, but for now I have just acquired it. You talk about optional bosses real quick. I think the only one that I came across was the Brooding Moloch, I believe is the name.
Yeah.
And
Malwick, something like that, yeah.
I fought it and finally beat it, and then brought it up in your Twitch chat, and everybody was just like, "Oh yeah, you didn't even have to do that," and I was like, "Son of a bitch."
I don't remember, but I think you get a pretty decent reward for beating that. Like, I think it might have been like a mask shard or something after you beat that one. So it's definitely worth doing, but yeah, totally optional.
It actually it gave me my 4th mask shard and gave me another life. So I was like, hey, that's what's up. But then to find out that I didn't have to sit there for 30 minutes trying to beat that thing. Yeah.
But that's one of the things. It's like when you're exploring and you're not sure what's next, it's hard to know. Well, this is just an optional thing. I don't have to do this. So it's like, yeah, I better go ahead and do this while I'm here. Because I'm not sure where else to go. So yeah, so it can be hard to find where you're going sometimes in the game. That's one thing that can be really frustrating for people, and I'm sure that's one of the things that frustrated both you and Ryan while playing it.
Absolutely.
But another thing I want to say about the game is they did a great job of supporting it for like all the Kickstarter people, because they released 4 DLC packs for it absolutely for free. And like, I know your version, I think every version of the game now includes all of them, but they did 4 separate DLC packages for this game that were all free, and 2 of them were major expansions that added new stuff to it.
Oh,
like even new areas to the game.
That's awesome. That's awesome they did it for free. I always appreciate when devs do that. Like as much shit as they've been getting recently, when CD Projekt Red did that for The Witcher 3 and they released 16 free DLC. Which, I mean, they were like, character changing stuff and getting a haircut and stuff like that. But I mean, still, it's like companies like EA who want you to pay $15 to have a new kind of bed in your Sims house. I always appreciate when devs are like, nah, listen, here's a little something.
Like, I stand firmly on the side of, I don't mind paying for a DLC if it's worth it. Like, I haven't bought it yet, but I like the game enough that I think I will next time I play it, where Breath of the Wild has like a pretty major DLC that I think is like $19 or something that you can buy for master mode and all that, and it adds shrines to it. I think something like that, it's worth it. But like, I agree, there's a lot of games where it's just like, here, have this DLC, and you can look like the guy from Persona 5.
Yeah. Oh god, Persona 5 is so good. So good. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get the whole, skin thing. But, to each their own.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, though, in wrapping up Hollow Knight, that this has got me wanting to finish it and then check out some of the other, not even Metroidvanias, like some other harder platformer games, to see if I can get the satisfaction out of it. Like, I listened to another podcast called Factory Sealed, Retro Gaming Pod, and Mike on that show has like ranted and raved about Celeste, about how
I love that game.
How good Celeste is. And, oh yes, you've played it.
Yeah, it's a great game.
Yeah, I've been meaning to try that. That and Grease. I don't know how to say.
I want to try that one too. I haven't played that one, but that looks really cool. So I'll definitely check that out at some point as well.
Yeah, we've got that on the list. But I need to get Celeste, though, because I've just heard so much about that game and how it deals with depression and things like that. And being somebody who has dealt with a lot of that, I would like to see how the game handles it and see if I like it as much as Mike did when he got through it.
Yeah. Like, I'm fortunate that I haven't had to deal with a lot of mental health issues like that. But from way I can tell from it, I think it deals with it in a very sensitive way. And it's very poignant. And I think it's definitely something I really like the way they handled it, but I'm not the best person to ask because I don't honestly deal with a lot of those sorts of issues personally. But yeah, from what I've talked to people that have and do, they seem to agree that it does it in a very good way. But I would ask people more like that for that opinion, honestly.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. And then let's see if I'm gonna give Hollow Knight a rating based on what I've played. I will give it an 8.5. Giving it some room for growth. But I can tell that it's a really good game because it basically, if a game, when I load it up and I start playing and I'm immediately not like, what the fuck is this? It's automatically at least a 5. And it builds up from there. Now, if I load up a game and I'm like, what the fuck? Like Rat Venture, Tiny Bridge, whatever the fuck it was. When I loaded that up, it was like, okay, we're going to start at 5. And within 2 levels, it had ticked down to 0, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done with this game. Fuck this.
I'm out.
So, so far, I'll give Hollow Knight an 8.5. I assume this is probably a 10 for you, or
yeah, 100% a 10 for me. This is like genuinely one of my favorite video games of all time.
Yeah, dude, well, fucking thank you so much for buying it for us and coming on the show and talking about it. I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate that I didn't have to do this by myself because it would have been a really short episode.
Well, I'm glad I could help with that, Dalton. Glad I could help him. I'm hoping Ryan starts feeling better because I know that sucks, and I just hope he gets to feeling better soon. Send him my best.
I will. All right, so let's run through the obligatory. Oh, well, actually, first, the other day on your Twitch stream, which if anybody would like to check Nate out on Twitch, it is twitch.tv/TurtleBearMan.
That is correct. TurtleBearMan.
TurtleBearMan. And it's good stuff. He's usually streaming retro, like NES games from what I've seen. And I enjoy it. I think everybody else should check it out. Go give him a follow. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. Oh no, that's YouTube. That's not Twitch.
That's
Fuck.
YouTube.
Fuck.
No, I haven't hit affiliate yet, so you can't even subscribe. Just follow.
All right, go. All right, well, go give him a follow. I'm so used to hearing like, comment, and subscribe. I watch too much YouTube.
I hear you, man. I've done it before. I didn't even think about it until you said that to YouTube. It's like, oh, yep, that is YouTube.
Damn you, Rhett and Link, just hammering that into my head. But in your stream, I went ahead and ran Steamy as a stream reveal, and our next game for next week is going to be King's Quest. It was 126 on the randomized list. King's Quest, but not the original series. It is the remaster from 2012 or 2014, something like that. We do have the King's Quest collection. At one point I was watching a lot of older Metal Jesus videos, and he was talking a lot about old Sierra games because he used to work at Sierra. And then I happened to go on to Humble Bundle, and they had a Sierra bundle that came with all these old adventure games that Sierra had done. So I snagged it up. So now I've got like King's Quest, Police Quest, Space Quest? Is that another one?
It's a lot of quests.
I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of kinds of the quest games. And then Phantasmagoria 1 and 2, which has been great watching Dave stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Tadpog, I think. Tadpog Podcast, something like that.
Podcast. Tadpog_podcast.
That's right.
Sure.
That's right. It's cumbersome. He realizes. Yeah. And those old point-and-click adventure games. Gabriel Knight is another series that I got. So I'm looking forward to those. I'm hoping that they still run relatively well at this day and age. I told Ryan this the other day, actually. I said, he's like, you realize we have like 20 years worth of content, right? And I was like, do we really? He's like, yeah, it's about 21 years if we do a game a week without doing long games. Which I need to touch on too. I'll get to that in a second. But so I was like, well, fucking A. I said, well, if you look at it, I said, it'll even out because new games are going to come out that we're going to want to play. So we'll buy them and add them to the list, right? I said, but these older games are eventually just not going to fucking work.
Like, get an emulator.
One of our first games that we pulled was Gothic, the original Gothic game. And Ryan could not get it to run on his laptop for the life of him. And so we had to choose a different game. So I left it on the list, but I'm hoping that when we come back to it, that there will be like, I don't know, he'll have his PC built by then, and we can do some compatibility type stuff with it. But we'll figure it out. And then long games. I know some people were expecting Trails in the Sky, Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky next. We are still playing that. I'm going to play that in my like free time when I'm not playing games for the show. Because that game is so long. I don't know if you guys want to hear 4 or 5 episodes about that game in a row. You know what I mean? So I want to play it in the background and kind of take notes on it. And then once I finish it, and Ryan probably won't finish it because it's a lot of text to read and he is not all about that life. But once I finish it, then I'll compile my notes and then do an episode on it. So that'll be going in the background. But for now, the next game will be King's Quest. I look forward to it. I'm done rambling. You can find us at facebook.com/Steam Machine Podcast or over on Twitter at Steam_podcast. We have a Discord link posted and pinned at the top of our Facebook page, and we have a Facebook group. It's the Steam Machine Podcast Lounge. Come in there, share memes, talk about games, do whatever you want. Just keep it friendly. That's all we ask. In the Discord and on Facebook. Just keep it friendly. And Nate, again, brother, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate you. It's been good getting to know everybody in the Tadpog community, and it's nice to be able to call you guys my friends. So I appreciate you. Thank you for the gift of Hollow Knight. And is there anything else that you want to say? You want to plug anything? You want to plug your Twitch again real quick?
I mean, yeah, the only thing I had to plug was my Twitch, twitch.tv/TurtleBearMan. But, man, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate you doing that. This was a blast. It's the first time I've recorded a podcast, and this is a great one to be on. And, man, made it easy, so I appreciate you.
Yeah, man, no worries. Feels good to pop your cherry, brother. All right, well, for this week for the Steam Machine Podcast, he's Nate, I'm Dalton, and as always, guys, take it easy.
Facebook.com/The Steam Machine Podcast, or search Facebook and join our group, the Steam Machine Podcast Lounge. You can also find us on Twitter at Steam_podcast. We thank everyone for listening, and as always, we'll catch you next week.